What's up, guys, and welcome back to INTHESHOPTV. Even here in the South, guys, fall is in the air. We got a hoodie on today, but it doesn't stop the work that needs to get done on this 55 Chevy truck. In fact, I don't know about you guys, but I prefer working when it's kind of cool out. All right, enough of that. If you haven't been following along, let me catch you up with what's been going on. We made this custom cool piece that fills in this back step notch here. It's got a light up Chevy logo with a piece of diamond plate behind it. Got a Mustang tank fitted and installed. Rear ends all assembled, 4-link painted, everything's put back together. Looking great. I'm really happy with how everything's coming out. Got our wheels and tires mounted. They're looking pretty good. So being that this is all painted and everything's installed and we're kind of looking pretty good back here, we're gonna start working our way forward. But we've got this rear end with no brake lines on it whatsoever. So I think the next thing we're gonna do is work on getting this plumbed in with brake hoses and then fabricate a hard line that goes over the pumpkin and to each. Now they sell the pre-made brake tube that fits this rear end for, because this is from a 96 Ford Explorer. But if you guys remember, we shortened this rear end, so that's not gonna work anymore for us. Plus we took some of the clips off for the sway bar mounts and all that sort of stuff. So we're gonna have to custom make our own hard line to go over that pumpkin. What I'd really like to do is run stainless hoses back there on both of those calipers and from the line that goes forward to our hard line. However, there's one company that makes them specifically for this rear end for the 96 Ford Explorer because we're using those brakes, remember. But I can't seem to get in touch with them no matter how hard I try. So what I'm gonna do is when I bought this rear end, I had bought just a standard set of like Dorman rubber brake hoses that fit this rear end. So I'm gonna go ahead and install those temporarily since I have them. I'm gonna do it that way because number one, I need to fabricate little clips on the rear end that will work for when we do get the stainless lines that we wanna work, they'll bolt right up to it. So I don't think I had them when I cut them off when I did the rear end. I saved them, but I think I misplaced them in this sea of crap in my shop. So I'm gonna have to fabricate some little clips that I can attach these brake hoses to. Well, what do you know? I threw them in my scrap metal bin and we still got them. All right, so that's gonna make life a hell of a lot easier because I was gonna have to fabricate these and get these holes exact distance apart. And then this hole here, both holes on the right side are threaded to take a bolt. So I would have had to tap the pieces of metal out. So now I'm not gonna have to do that. First, I'm gonna go ahead and tap out these holes again with a thread cleaner just to make sure that we have good threads when we put our bolt in place. All right, guys, so we hit a little snafu. These are the stock brake lines that are for a 96 Ford Explorer for that rear end. That was the purpose of these brackets. They kind of hook in there and then screw down just like that. The problem is that the caliper has a little lip right down here at the bottom, which means that these factory brake hoses can only go on in one way, meaning this end has to face down towards that. They won't fit sideways like that. They can only go on in this orientation. If I put it on in that orientation, I'm gonna have to bend this hose so much so that by the time I get it on there, my bracket is gonna be almost up against the axle flange over here. Essentially what I'm saying is that this part of the hose is way too short. So, back in the box they go. You know, I told you guys long ago on this channel that I was gonna film everything. My screw ups, my success, all that. And this is part of building cars. Sometimes it gets screwed up. Sometimes things don't work out right. And this is not working out right. So back to the drawing board we go. So I've been doing a ton of research on this. And what I came up with is that Jeep Grand Cherokees, Jeep Wranglers, a lot of them use these Ford 8.8 axles. And the calipers that they use are almost exactly the same. Sometimes they are the same or they're extremely similar in design. Now the custom market for products is greatly dependent upon need. So I know in the off-road circuit, there's a lot of products available for Jeeps and stuff like that because they tend to mod these vehicles a lot. Ford Explorers, not so much. But I was able to find these right here. If you remember, we said we originally wanted a stainless or a braided line for our brakes. Here we go. I think they're gonna work. I think that little block where it mounts to the caliper is of the same size and same orientation, and it has the little bends up in here that'll kind of kick it up away from the caliper and around. They're nice and long, which will facilitate what we're trying to do. Now, if it doesn't work, the other option is just a standard brake line with a banjo fitting on the end. You know, the little circular fittings. That'll probably work, but the banjo bolts themselves that come with our calipers are longer because they're made to fit all the way through that kind of wide Ford Explorer banjo block that they have there. So yes, I guess I can get standard brake lines with the circular banjo fitting and then go out and get different banjo bolts that fit those. But I think this is the most streamlined option that is going to give us what we want, which is a stainless braided line that will fit on our caliper utilizing the existing banjo bolt and look good and perform how we want it to perform. The bad news is for you guys, which is that today is Thursday and I can't get these here in time to have my video out for Friday like I normally do. All right, so the new brake lines just got here. You got these square blocks, kind of like the Ford ones do. I think they're a little bit narrower. So let's take the old ones out, compare it. Not too bad. Let's get one in place and see. All right, that worked out pretty good. Now is get these brake line clips mounted on our axle. We're going to weld them on. We have to clean up some paint in the right spots. Now I don't have the center hose yet. It's on the way today. It'll be here shortly. So at least we can get this side mounted up. So we're going to take out a roll lock pad, die grinder, and clean up some of that axle paint. All right, one side down. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with how that worked out. If any of you guys are building a Ford 8.8 or using it in your build and you have one of these trucks, I'll leave the part number for these brake lines in the description below and in the comments below in case you guys want to go this route. All right, so that's both sides. Brake hose is done, welded on and painted. We've got one more clip that I just welded on right there that I didn't get it on camera, but that's gonna go for our center hose. We're gonna figure out something to mount that center hose block to the axle. And we gotta make two hard lines, one short one from the block to that hose and one over the pumpkin into this one. Okay, so with our center line in place and clipped in, what I wanna do now is I've created just a short little 8mm length of brake tubing that I double flared on both ends. I'll show you how I do that in a second. Go ahead and just thread this in here, finger tight, to where it bottoms out. And thread it into this other bracket that I made here. What I did is I took a spacer from one of the shocks that I don't need anymore, stuffed a nut in there. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and tack weld it from the top and then grind it flush so that's permanently installed. We're gonna get our spacing here by threading it into this block. We'll know where we need to be, then we can grind off some of this paint and weld this bracket that we've made onto the tube. So that's essentially what it's gonna look like. I'm gonna go ahead and mark that spot so we can grind our paint off. All right, so I shot 3 tacks just on the corner of the nut there. I really like this new Arccaptain welding machine. I'm telling you, it's got this inductance feature on it where we can kind of set it to, wet out the weld beads or keep it like more of a narrow profile or whatever. So I have it set to be a little bit wet and it just kind of flows out really smooth, which like reduces the amount of grinding I need to do. I did, that said I did have to grind it a little bit, obviously, just to get it flat, but very minimally. So that'll work out. I've got the edges here ground down to take weld. I think we're ready to go. I know on video it's like, it seems like 10 or 15 minutes that I make these whole things and this whole stuff transpire, but this has been going on. This little brake line back here on the axle, this rear end project for the brake lines has been going on for about almost 2 weeks now. What? How is that possible? I know it sounds crazy, but it's just been a nightmare. First parts I ordered took forever to get here. They messed up shipping. We determined they weren't gonna work, sent them back, ordered new ones, had to wait for those. They were supposed to be here at a different time. They showed up late. I just couldn't get parts to do this right. I had the brake clips for the axle to weld on, or I thought I had them. They were missing. I had to go find those at a parts store, weld those on. It was a never-ending procedure. And then what happened is my friend brought his car in here. So I had to take the 55 Chevy and push it all the way against the wall. It's on caster plates right now. I don't know if you guys are into imports, know anything about them and all that. I'm not too big into them. I don't know too much about them. This is a 93 Sylvia, straight out of Japan. Now in the States, this is what they would call a 240Z from Nissan. But this is an actual one from Japan with the right-hand drive, as you can see. Kind of a neat deal. So what had happened here is his tank, which you can barely see, is right there, his gas tank, and it had a little bit of a leak on the other side, slow leak. So he's only able to put about 4 gallons of gas in at a time. So the plan was we're gonna drop the tank, patch up that tank, and he bought like a cat delete exhaust for this thing. We're just gonna change all the exhaust while I have it up in the air. Well, the exhaust came off, no problem, 1, 2, 3. And that's where the 1, 2, 3 ended. So in order to get that tank out, which is hidden back there, this entire independent rear suspension had to get unbolted and dropped. Brake lines, body bushings, you name it, the drive shaft, everything, and the whole thing had to come out. That took forever. Then once we got the tank out, we had to locate the leak, and we started plastic welding it by melting the plastic on the side of the plastic tank. Now that took forever because we thought we had it, put some gas in it, turn it on the side, sure enough, little pinhole leak still coming. We did that about 4 times until we finally got it to seal up. So getting the tank back in was a nightmare. Getting the rear end back in was a nightmare. We're doing everything on our backs over here. I don't have a lift in the shop as of yet. Now the exhaust they sent him is all wrong, so we have to make modifications to the exhaust, make up custom flanges, cut some custom pipe. It's just been an absolute nightmare. I've had him in here for about a week. I think today we're gonna get him out of here so I can continue on with my brake lines. All right, we're back again. Got him going late last night. We got our floor space back, or got some floor space back anyway. So we've got one piece of brake line remaining from there, up over the pumpkin, and into this block that we just mounted the other day. To do that, I do it kind of old school. I'm just gonna use a piece of wire here and a Sharpie. So I've got it kind of roughly bent into shape how I want it. And then I just put a mark on it right there. So this is everything that I use when I do custom brake lines. I have a flathead, a small little file. I use some Nycop tubing, which I'm sure you guys have all heard of. It's really easy to work with. And this kit specifically is a rigid 345. It is a fantastic brake flaring kit. There's a lot of inexpensive ones you can get out there. As a matter of fact, I had an inexpensive one when I first started, and they just leave you frustrated. And the tubing slips through here, and it doesn't make good flares. It's a pain in the neck. I spent the money, and I got the good set. I think these are $189 right now at Granger. If you want to pick one up, I'll leave the link to it in the description. You can get just this block and just this part on Amazon, I think for 79 bucks. I'll also put that in the description if you guys are interested, but it does not come with the dies or the tubing cutter or the case. So just keep that in mind. The kit does single flares and it also does double flares. And when you get it, you'll realize where the money went because, I don't know if you guys can hear it on camera, but this thing's a tank. I mean, it's super, super beefy. And one thing I really like about this is these holes are just so precision cut so that when you have your tubing in here, it just grips it tight. So when you're clamping down and making your flare, it does not push through. It holds on really, really tight and well. So great kit, guys, a rigid 345. All right, so I've got our wire mocked up to what I want the piece to look like. Bent it by hand best I could. I'm no artist, so please excuse me. I apologize if you guys have seen this 1,000 times, but for those who haven't, I don't want to skip it. So when you're cutting your tube and you use your tubing cutter, you just kind of tighten down until it gets a little bit snug. And you'll do like a full turn, and then you'll crank down on it again, make another full turn, and just keep making small little increments like that until it cuts through the pipe cleanly. If you crank down too much and turn it, you'll just kind of crush the pipe, and you'll have to ream it open and make another cut anyway, and you'll ruin your piece. So just turn, quarter turn, tighten, turn it again, quarter turn, tighten, turn it again, and keep going until it snaps off. All right, so we've got our cut and shaped end. I'm just gonna stick it in place first and make sure that we are where we need to be. And that looks perfect. So the next thing you want to do once you have your piece cut is they give you these little reamers on the back of your pipe cutters. And you just kind of stick them in there and they ream out the hole a little bit. You can use these, or you can use like a drill attachment chamfering tool, which works even better than this actually. But this will work just fine if it's all that you have. Another reason for that is when you cut these, they tend to fold over into that hole. So you open it up also to, number one, to clean it up, but also to make sure that your dies here will fit inside like that, which it does. The next step is I'll take a small file or a piece of sandpaper and I kind of chamfer the edges of the tubing. And I'll go very lightly over the top just to clean up any burrs that I might have. You don't have to go crazy on it, just kind of clean it up so it's nice and smooth. This next part's really important. You want the piece of tubing sticking up out of your holder there, the exact same height as the die. You can see shoulder to shoulder that it's exactly the same height. All right, so anyone who's done this will tell you, you've probably seen it before on YouTube, and I learned this myself the hard way. You gotta put your flare nuts on, and you gotta do it before you start flaring the ends, because once you do that, and you forget to put these on, your tubing is worthless and you gotta start all over again. I like to put both of them on before I start flaring. This way, I just never forget. It's a good rule to get into, a good habit. This way, it doesn't happen to you. Again, I learned the hard way, but if I can help somebody else not make that mistake, put both nuts on before you start any flaring. All right, so it's kind of a two-step process. Once you have your tubing in there with your die in place on top of it, you'll kind of lightly crank down on these handles right here just to get everything in position and lined up. Then you'll tighten this side one first so that you pull these together tight and hold that pipe in place. You don't have to go crazy gorilla tight on it. You're not trying to crush the pipe to death. You just want to get it nice and firm so it doesn't move. And then you're going to slowly start cranking down on the top handle. And what will happen is that die, it's going to push that pipe down and kind of smash the top over it till it makes that kind of bubble flare on it. If you start feeling some resistance, you want to stop when that die gets flushed down to the holder. Then you're going to back the top off. And then sometimes that die gets stuck in there. Sometimes it falls out. I'll take the flathead and pull it out. There's what you're left with. Kind of got that bubble flare right now. Now, if you'll notice, the top part of this press is kind of conical shaped. So then you're going to go ahead and start threading that down and that'll flare that bubble out. And there you go, look at that. When you take it out of there, you have, I love this tool. It makes a perfect double flare every time. Isn't that pretty looking? The Rigid 345, guys, check this tool out, it's awesome. All right, brake lines are finally done in the rear, but I want to show you guys kind of a cool trick that I thought of. I don't know if anyone else does this. Some people might think it's corny. Hell, it probably is corny, but I think it's cool, and it actually serves a function too. Check this out. I'll take decorative chrome split loom, and I'll run it over that copper line. That night cop is good, strong stuff, but the one thing I don't like about it is the color is often contrasting unless you're going for that kind of copper look in your build. I'm kind of liking this nice shiny look here, so I just run some chrome split loom over it. Another nice thing about it too is it provides some cushion should it rub on anything, or it's not really touching here, but it's close. And another nice thing about it is if your bends aren't perfect, like mine aren't, it really covers things up and makes it look like it's perfect, even if it's not. So another hidden benefit of running some split loom over your brake lines. Protects it, makes it look good, and covers up any screw-ups you might have. Anyway, guys, we're finally done. That's all I got for today. Thank you guys for watching. I hope to catch you on the next video. Please like, comment, subscribe. I need a little help I can get growing this channel. Thanks, guys. Catch you on the next one.